As we continue this exploration of mass and concentrations of power in the continuum of dominance and sociopathic to empathic and partnering, let's look at the evolutionary potential of the species at a mathematical level as we move from sociopathic environment, which evokes and correlates to the reptilian brain, which leads to the fight, flight, freeze instinct. What we get as a return on that investment is survival. As long as you are in a complex ecology that is sociopathic, the best one can achieve is day-by-day survival. Now, at the opposite side of the continuum, you have an empathic environment, which leads directly to the application of the law of empathy. The law of empathy is attunement to the strongest felt experiences in the space. So when you empathize with someone, as in the case of loving and caring about someone or the planet, there is an innate tracking of the pleasures and pains of those being empathized with. And this leads to attunement. Attunement to the behavior and cooperation towards the behavior in which the greatest joys and wonders and values of the loved one, of the cared for one, of the empathized with one, are respected. To respect is to see and then to honor. To honor is to change the path of behavior in alignment with the felt experience of the one that is cared for. If you love your child and you touch them with a red-hot poker and they scream, you don't do it again. You attune and make extra effort to avoid hurting them. Similarly, when you understand that your partner's deepest and most passionate desire and sense of fulfillment comes from painting, you give up something not particularly important. And so in empathy, you're in a transcendent state where you take your own values and feelings into account, but you also take into account other people, those who are empathized with. And this leads to, in practical relationships, something like the 1 to 10 scale, where I want to do this 8 out of 10. 1 to 10, how much does it affect you positively or negatively? Well, you're in alignment if your partner wants to do something 8 out of 10 as well. So now you've got a net profit of 16 out of a possible 20 points return on investment of doing that activity, and you proceed. But if you want to do something 8 out of 10 and your partner says that will cause them 9 out of 10 pain, then you look for another alternative. Okay, I want to do this other thing, 8 out of 10. How about this one? Well, that's just neutral. I don't care about that. So we've got progress. And but what about this? What if we did this other thing that I would love to do 10 out of 10? And if you can get to, well, I'd like to do that a 5. Well, now you've got 15 points. When you operate based on empathy, you take the positive and negative charges of the people within the empathic circle, which is defined as the circle of belonging. The innate felt experience of belonging is the experience of the people in the circle acting within a paradigm of empathy, where if this harms you, that affects my behavior. And if this helps you, that also affects my behavior in the direction of your well-being. And so there's a process of creating possibilities and then settling on actualities in that possibility field that have a high emotional resonance for those in the circle. And we have the size of the circle. In a kind of larger power structure paradigm where you have groupthink and identity based on whatever, skin color, etc., then your circle is as big as your group. In a sociopathic framework, your circle is as big as yourself. You do not consider anyone outside of yourself. And so when one acts with the law of empathy, which is coming from the transcendent version of the brain, transcending what? Transcending the individual ego. You create a higher mathematical field, because now the only people who will cooperate with you are people who experience the law of empathy being practiced, including them. Those are the only people you can rely on for willing cooperation. And the difference between fear-based and willing cooperation is enormous when you consider the amount of creativity that is only possible with willing cooperation, and also when you consider the savings in defense. So the defense budget of an ego, a group, a family, a country is equal to the amount of fear, of survival, of security, of love and belonging, of self-esteem, etc., in relationship to the other groups, the other members in the circle. If one has reason to believe that one's survival and security is threatened by an equal or superior mass that is sociopathic, meaning it has an agenda that is counter to your survival, your security, your well-being, etc., then you will develop a defense as part of your human need to survive. To defend by weakening the organization or group or country or religion, whatever, the organization, group, country, etc., that is threatening your human needs. And the way to defend in every instance is to expend energy in such a way that your opponent, the one who is not including you in the impact of their behavior, that your opponent has to spend more energy, or at least some energy. A good defense is set up so that your opponent has to spend more energy to defend themselves as they violate your boundaries than you do, because that's a costly maneuver. So in an empathic framework, all you have to do is say, hey, this is really hurting me. This is really hurting me. What do we need to do here? Could you adjust your behavior? And they say, sure, thanks for telling me. You matter. I would like to adjust my behavior. That's in an empathic framework. And no defense is needed if this is consistent. If it's inconsistent, then you need to have a contingency for the times when something vital to your security and survival is on the line, and they have no interest. So the defense is relative. The defense protocol and strategy is relative to the consistency of empathy within the environment. And if there is a steady weakening, etc., then a variety of different protocols are employed that force the consequences of empathy, which is respect and honor. Only it's not a respect and honor that is coming from love or care. It is a respect and honor of fear. So when you're pulled over by a gang so that you can be raped, maybe you'll catch an STD, maybe you'd be hurt, robbed, you need that money for your survival and your security, etc. There is a direct attack on your human needs. And the gang is obviously, if they're pulling you over under threat of violence, they're not in an empathic state. If they would say, oh, this person doesn't enjoy having their freedom curtailed, etc., so we're not going to do it. And so you're dealing with someone in a sociopathic state in a dominance hierarchy. And so their only goal is to have more force than you to get something that they want at your expense. And this is how, of course, when sociopathic treatment is uncontained and unrecognized and not responded to, it always leads to escalating defense, often in an arms race, or sometimes that is enough to say, oh, you have a gun too, I'd like to rape you, but I'm not willing to risk being shot. And so there's still a sociopathic state, but there is a stalemate of deference. But the cost of defense is high in a sociopathic state, meaning all sides have to maintain a relative parity in the ability to hurt one another, or the violation protocol does not stop. So when a government abuses its people, the citizenry have to develop contingencies to fight their government. And in gross violations of governmental authority or militia, you get what we call terrorism. What you get is covert violence, because if you've got a government, the Chinese government has decided that your right to elect your chosen leaders is, they don't care. Out the window. Nope, you don't get to be free, but that's one of your values. And not only do you not get to be free, but having decided that we have the power, we're going to reduce your ability to survive and feel secure here. We're going to reduce your ability to have this part of you feel welcome. So you cannot feel love and belonging. You cannot feel a sense of security in your survival unless you are loyal to a state power that is going counter towards your human development, your human needs, your human values. And so in this situation, you have covert hostile activity that rises to the degree that there is a totalitarian regime of power with superior mass, meaning if you go head-to-head with that mass, they kill you, they kill your relatives, etc. So now you have a secrecy protocol, which is another expenditure of energy, because first you have to expend the energy to become secret. And then you have to expend the energy to cause friction for the dominant sociopathic power regime. And so you have things, and of course the regime always defines what is rebels and what's terror. In Star Wars, the Empire and the Emperor were going to bring order, and they were the right force, and the dark side of the force. And the rebels were saying, no, we don't want to be subjugated from above. And it's notable that that the empire was about order. We will bring order to the galaxy. In other words, we are going to liberate the galaxy from the terror of the unknown, from chaos, which is a deep-seated fear. And so to the degree that there is trauma within the constituency of a power dynamic, there will be support for power structures that bring order, because the fear of chaos and the unknown is greater than the resentment of the top-down power structure. And so one could say that an erratic, disorganized, chronic war of infinite factions in an ongoing dynamic of violence in a sociopathic state brings about the most fear and uncertainty and is the most terrifying. And into this dynamic, there will be collusion and participation to support a singular state that is not the worst and that imposes martial law and brings order. It's sociopathic, but it's organized sociopathic behavior that is deemed to be more beneficial than not. You are going to drive on this side of the road, or we will take your driver's license. You look at that and you say, okay, sociopathic, top down, but overall, it's a good idea to have people driving on the right side of the road and not just swerving into the other lane. And you are going to obey traffic stop signs, and good idea. Let's have some order, and even if it's imposed in the top down. And so you have the movement from sociopathic chaos, which is the worst, to organized sociopathic top-down power structure, which is a step forward, to organized top-down democratic power structures where everyone who is a stakeholder gets a vote. It's still sociopathic and it's top-down, but it's participatory, so you have a step in the right direction. But the tremendous breakthrough comes when you transcend the sociopathic state. When you transcend the sociopathic state and the reptilian brainstem by creating an ordered intention that is empathic, which basically says that we're going to use whatever power is voluntarily and voted to be concentrated within a power body, specifically to alleviate the greatest harm and the greatest pain of the people who are suffering the most and lift them out of trauma, poverty, so that they are surviving, secure in their survival, and have basic love and belonging, as well as the necessary freedoms to pursue their self-esteem, their ideals, their sense of, I would like to be this kind of person, and this is the person I'd like to be. And so here you have things like homosexual marriage. I aspire to that. I would like to be able to love and honor the relationship that I honor and love, and I have the freedom to do so without violence. And so when the top-down structure allows the individuals, and including all the minorities involved, to express their authentic ideals you have you have a dramatic reduction in violence, because now the order is being used to create the facilitation of human needs. And when this moves a step forward to, we are going to help each of our citizens, each of our people, every human being, to not only survive, not only feel secure in that survival, not only experience love and belonging for who they are, not only to support the rights and the freedoms to develop in alignment with one's ideals and beliefs which tie in with those ideals, but we are going to take an active interest in the full development and potential of every single person, to develop their human gifts, to interface those gifts constructively with the surrounding cult or culture, and go a step further to experience the abundance, to share the abundance that emerges. See, because the more people in any ecosphere that have survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, and have developed their strengths and integrated those into the culture, the more valuable the culture is, the higher the level of human well-being. And when there is a principle that says that that well-being will be made available, it's not going to be stolen or taken or coerced in some way, it's going to be shared in the space. There is an exponential expansion of abundance. Abundance of love, abundance of art, abundance of stimulation, abundance of choice, abundance of freedom, abundance of creativity, abundance of literature, abundance. There is an exponential and creative expansion of the field of wealth, which is the ease or the probability field of ease within which human well-being is experienced. Because human well-being is very high just in meeting the, in having those needs met with all the people in the circle. It's very high, one. But it's also, it goes that much higher when there's a sense of equity and honor. When we understand that an artist who's contributing diversity and dance and vitality as you're driving to work, you see more and more art as opposed to billboards and bullshit. When you experience that art, everyone doing other things experiences that art in the community ecosphere. They experience a wide variety of culinary cuisine. They experience a large number of different products. They experience a large domain of architecture and different lifestyles, which is creating a palette of creative well-being, which, understanding hedonic adaptation, that the more monotonous the diet of any sensory experience, the lower grade the experience. Meaning if you have to eat chocolate lava cake and raspberry sorbet, which started out as your kind of choice of culinary cuisine of the moment, if you have to eat that 3 meals a day, day after day, whether you want to or not, it quickly becomes disgusting. That's hedonic adaptation. But if you've got an ever-expanding degree of diversity, it overcomes hedonic adaptation. One day your delightful surprise is seeing a new type of flower that someone cultivated. The next it's this type of raspberry sorbet. Then it's this one. Then it's cold coffee and hot coffee and this one and this one and this one and this one. And when the more people who are in the circle within that framework, the more diversity there is for all within the framework. So the higher level of human well-being. And the more cooperation there is, the more efficiency there is. This shirt cost $10 and was delivered to my door because millions of human beings cooperated to develop ink, to develop printing, to develop silk, to ship silk, to transport silk, to design silk, to package it this way and this way and this way and this way. If I was in a system of one rather than a system of millions, if I personally had to develop the textile industry, develop the printing press, develop ink, I would spend my entire life and I would not have a single piece of clothing as nice as this. Instead, it's tap of a button and $10 because of cooperation. Now, in a capitalist framework of cooperation, it is a sociopathic cooperation of self-interest. I've got, the reviews are going to be bad if I don't do this, and I'm not going to make it nicer than this or it won't sell. And there's this kind of collaboration and sense of, and it's very much a winner takes all type thing. So, as someone rushes in with a lower product, maybe in sweatshop labor, another more ethical company gets put out of business because sweatshop labor was better. And in a sociopathic framework, the customer does not concern themselves. They're interested in one thing, the price they have to pay to get value. The rest, no, I don't want kids to be slaves, but nor do I want to take the time to find out. Nor do I, even if I know, if I'm in a sociopathic state and I'm feeling afraid of running out of money, I may say, sorry kids, but I can't afford a better thing. And so we're in a relative, the kind of general direction of free market economy is creating the level of cooperation, but without empathy. It's cooperation through what's called enlightened self-interest, which is I won't hurt you and you won't hurt me, and we'll have this kind of invisible transaction where if you do hurt me, it'll hurt your reviews, so you're not going to do that. And that stomps out. So you've got accountability through information. And so you can get that high and still be in a sociopathic state with relatively few, quote, bad apples. I mean, relatively few people will send a synthetic silk and call it silk, will put dyes in that cause cancer. That goes on all the time. The DuPont Corporation has effectively spread a birth defect compound called C8 around the globe in the bodies of about everyone in the globe by masking the harmful effects of some of the C8 chemical in Teflon and masking the studies and suppressing the information that it enters the bloodstream of the people who eat food made from Teflon. And the reason for that was that the product that was the safer alternative other than C8 was more expensive, and so DuPont made a higher profit margin for its shareholders by selling out the global community in the manufacture of Teflon. And that type of thing, when they don't know, see, and this is where you get a secrecy protocol, which then requires investigative journalism. This all takes work. All of that goes away when you have an empathy-based culture that is not simulated. You cannot force someone in a reptilian brain stem acting in fear. You cannot force them to be ethical behind closed doors. They will be fear-based behind closed doors because the only reason they're being ethical is because they know people are watching. And so within a sociopathic framework, there is a tremendous push to control information on the side of the abuser and to discover information for the public. And the public is not particularly interested in information about other people outside their group being harmed if it costs them more. So you have kind of a don't ask, don't tell. They want to know for sure if, as it turned out with flammable children's clothes, where the chemicals put into the flame reduction pajamas, etc., are causing allergic reactions, health defects, etc. But because if they say flame retardant, they sell better, and they are not required to disclose the chemicals in flame retardant pajamas, etc., then it is in the having masked that effectively behind the doors of corporate product development. Millions of children have toxic chemicals in their pajamas, protected by law. And there have been a few documentaries as you try and actually discover what is in the clothing of your children. But here again, it's because my children are having an allergic reaction. We're not at the state where it would bother the typical human being that someone else's child in a different country is dealing with severe medical issues. We are not bothered as shareholders if expired or drugs that have been proven unsafe and are banned in our country are unloaded on poorer countries that bring profit to our shareholders. We don't want to know. We just want to see the return. And so you get a narrowing of focus to the degree that you are sociopathic, one, and to the degree that you are group-centered around, you have all kinds of travesties and tragedies, at all levels of our global human interactions, where for $50,000 someone accepted a bribe and their family got better. Their family was $50,000 ahead. And millions of other families who were not associated with, who were not empathized with, experienced catastrophic harm, whether it's the rainforest tribes in Brazil who are developing birth defects and cancer because of the poor treatment of our oil companies. And this, and of course it was our courts that decided whether our oil companies would pay any amount of money to clean stuff up or not. And our courts were empathic to the governments of our country. They were not empathic to the rights of indigenous mothers to have children without defects on their own land. And so we have a little bit more shareholder value, and we have tens of thousands of destroyed lives in other cultures and other countries that do not have the militarization needed to command respect in a dominance culture. Because if they had nuclear weapons and those tribal members said, it's up to you, of course, but if you damage 50,000 of our children, you watch the United States response to 3,000 deaths in the World Trade Center. $1 trillion of terror rained on the Middle East. $1 trillion of terror to respond to 3,000 deaths. So, of course, if the tribal culture had nuclear weapons and said, you don't have to clean up your mess, you ruin our forests, but we will send a nuclear warhead to your children and your country, That's what it takes in a dominance sociopathic power structure to get honor and respect. It is honor and respect from fear of pain based solely on the ability of the adversary. The adversarial relationship is created when one dominance cult violates the other. That's an adversarial relationship. There is a violation. Our bodies, our rivers, our forests have been violated. Why? Because we didn't have the mass, the legal team, the scientists, to protect our boundaries. And because you are sociopathic, one, you have a large military, two, and that's enough. And you can bury the story. Same with the tobacco companies. Who gives a shit? The OxyContin family, who unloaded an addictive drug on the entire American continent by suppressing information. That's the result. And this is inevitable in a sociopathic dominance hierarchy. That's how sociopaths behave with power. Power is not the problem. Unresolved trauma in a traumatically illiterate cult induces the engagement with life primarily through the reptilian brainstem, which is a fear survival-based operating system. Fear and the need to survive create insular sociopathic views, which lead to insular sociopathic behavior, which leads directly to violating anything outside of the bubble. Me, my company, my country, my shareholders. Anything outside of the bubble is fair game, as long as we can protect, and this is where the corrupt application of law, the corrupt application of military, because who says that people who attack the US government are illegitimate terrorists, but that the US government dropping drone bombs on weddings are legitimate? Who says that? The US government. Why? Because we have a power structure that can just announce things like that. We have a bribery system and a bully system within the UN. We can legitimize acts of terror on other human beings through the CIA, through Homeland Security, through, I felt like I'm president and I decide I'm going to drop a bomb on someone or something that you care about for my political career. My ratings aren't doing very well. Let's knock out Gaddafi's family. Makes me go up in ratings. And so that's what I'm going to do. My power structure is more important than the needs to survive, feel secure, have a sense of love and belonging, esteem of people outside my bubble. So to the degree that this is the operating system is the degree to which there will be an allocation of mental, emotional, physical, and military and financial energy being spent to defend our bubble against another bubble. And that is incredibly costly. Just think about how many thieves there are in your town. I don't know, 5, 10, 20, 100 out of hundreds of thousands of people. How many thieves or murderers or whatever there are in your town? It's a small percentage, 1%, something like that. It's a very small percentage. But then look at what the 99% have to do. The 99% get security cameras, get insurance, get extra medical attention, buy guns, put locks on their doors, worry if the door is unlocked. Did you lock the door? Did you lock the door? That's mental armament. Emotion. Oh my gosh, I wonder if this is this. I wonder if my house is okay. That's emotional armament. That's emotional expense. It's mental expense. It's physical expense. It's ecological expense. Where does that plastic for that security camera come from? And where does it go after you decide to upgrade to the newest and greatest security camera and throw that one away? Where does that go? So you have environmental degradation. There's a cost on all sides to armament. And armament comes in parallel with the degree of sociopathic behavior within power structures. Thieves have the ability to steal. Governments have the ability to steal your money. It's called taxes. The police have the ability to steal your car. If you smoke marijuana, the police have the ability to steal all your possessions and impound them and auction them off. And what? To fund the police force, not to fund your family or rehabilitate your child so that your child has therapy with a broken home caused by your government. Why would you care about your citizens? No, let's fund the police and the military with the seizures of your things after breaking up your family. And then we'll have a bigger budget because when your child grows up in a broken family in an antagonistic relationship with authority, which is what happens when you destroy families and apply sociopathic ethics, then they are going to be criminals too, and we can get a bigger budget to go and kill them and lock them up and steal their things as well. And it's great because we arrested more people, aren't we good? We have a bigger budget, aren't we important? We have better policing cars. We have new semi-automatic weapons. Wonderful. We have a new law that lets us search and seize anyone now. As we escalate the problem, we can claim to be solving the problem we escalate, which is an endless military game. As we create terror, we induce new opposition. And as we experience new opposition, we can ask for more money to create more terror. And so this is a mathematical equation. Mathematically speaking, the amount of survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, development of personal gifts, while $1 trillion was being spent terrorizing other countries, Americans didn't get an education. American students got ladled with a shitload of debt. Parents didn't have maternity leave to take care of their children. So there's a cost to well-being that is directly proportional to the amount of energy that gets allocated towards defense. It's one of the reasons Denmark is a happier country with an average level of well-being that is 400% higher on any number of metrics than the average American. They haven't put that much towards defense, have they? They're not bombing other countries. You see, Denmark isn't going around the world bullying people, so nobody's particularly trying to attack them. And so there's an intelligence, mathematically speaking. If you value human well-being, and for your people or everyone else, if the more people you value well-being for, the more important it becomes to be an empathic decision-making body. Because empathic decision-making bodies lead to partnerships, creativity, and an expansion of wealth. And dominance hierarchies of a sociopathic nature escalate the amount that needs to be spent on defense indefinitely until You have situations where people will gladly go without food to buy a few more bullets because they think it'll get them through the night. And this is a very crude level of well-being. And so it's not just a spiritual truth that to operate out of the transcendent brain is more spiritual, which it is, meaning the transcendent brain, not only once you transcend the egotistical, fear-based region of the brain and the limited identity, and you identify with being part of a species, which is part of a planet, which is part of a universe, in partnership, in collaborative partnership. Not only can you eliminate all military budgets on Earth, you can eliminate all military budgets in your family. And this is not just locks, doors, car keys, you name it, making endless decisions. Like, if I leave this out, it gets stolen. I can't get this because I'm in a crime-based neighborhood and it would steal. I can't put this nice thing in my car because if I do, people will break the window and have it. So I can't have a nice thing. Or I have to carry it in and out of my car, taking 20% of my energy of enjoyment. That's a 20% tax to a fear. So, and this comes right down to the individual level. I can't tell my wife the truth here because then she'll be mad at this and attack me here. And if she does that, then I have to do this and this and that and the other, etc. And so this comes down to the smallest level of within one's own interaction. I can't let my inner child tell the truth about how hurt they are because that will make me feel embarrassed. So instead, I'm going to slam my inner child with shame and tell them to shut the fuck up and not embarrass me, the grown-up giant of an ego that has learned to internalize the wound of the pathological parent who asks their family to take the hit for their self-image in public. And so it's a state of consciousness, and there is only one key. There is only one key to free human consciousness from the reptilian brain cage. And it is to create an empathic environment that does not trigger the reptilian brain with the alarm bell that says, ding, 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 you are surrounded by reptiles. These assholes will not give a damn whether you survive or die, whether you have shame or terror. These assholes are doing what they're going to do, whether you like it or not. Ding, 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 ding. Let's turn on the reptilian brain to survive a sociopathic environment. The only way to unlock that is to have a family, to have a community, to have a neighborhood that from the moment you are born says, how can we help? Your survival, your security, your sense of love and belonging, your sense of understanding your own ideals. Every human being has an innate, it's an innate GPS that is leading them towards beauty, truth, and goodness. Everyone not in a sociopathic state by the induced reptilian brain is itching, is seeking, consciously or unconsciously, to formulate a personalized rendition of beauty, truth, and goodness. The Platonic triangle, which Plato, that's why it's called the Platonic, the triad. Plato discovered that this is what every consciousness yearns for. Every human consciousness yearns for beauty, truth, and goodness. And they're all faces of the same thing. They're faces of grace. They're faces of symmetry. They're faces of excellence. They're faces of the ideal, the transcendent ideal, which we take a giant step towards when we heal the traumatic brainstem and move into the transcendent brain following the law of empathy. This is a monumental and exponential advancement for a family, for a marriage, for a neighborhood, for a city, a town, a country, a species. Exponential returns, because the tax on shame, fear, and defense is not only not wasted making things worse, it is reallocated to create exponential wealth, exponential intelligence, higher and higher efficiency rates of generating well-being for all concerned. And the judgmental and the critical mind is outraged with this. Within the traumatic brainstem, criminals must be punished to teach them a lesson, because within the sociopathic paradigm, the only thing that's going to stop a criminal from being a criminal is fear. The other thing that's going to stop a criminal from being criminal is being lifted out of repressed, regressed trauma, understanding they are surrounded in an environment that wants to help them and that prioritizes their human needs. And it's no fun to be a reptile when you can be a human being. It's no fun. I want to dwell a little bit more on the geometry and the mathematics of transcending or transcendent partnership versus sociopathic defense, battle, and manipulation. And it's very much akin to the difference between a tug of war, in which you have various sides all pulling with counter interest. In a capitalist framework, you're trying to buy something for the least possible amount of money. I'm trying to sell something for the most possible money in a self-centered paradigm. And so you have polarities in tension. And one of the most ineffective uses of energy is lining up tens of millions of people on one side of the tug of war and tens of millions of people on the other side of the tug of war, and having them essentially cancel each other out. As soon as you take tens of millions of people and line them all up on the same side, now this rope can be attached to just about any global problem. And these problems just dissolve like that. Whether it's mathematical problems, energy problems, health problems, and the level of creativity in the brain when they do studies, post-traumatic tests, for example, in mathematics or any particular field. You traumatize someone and give them a test versus someone in a relaxed and empathic state is immense. The safety levels of driving, whether you are in a frenzy of rage because of some violation, your friend slept with your wife, and you're driving in that state versus driving in a place of feeling calm and serene and love, it's exponentially different. And so it's not a lineal difference. It's an exponential geometric increase in the possibility field for well-being. And I'm not, this would be one of the most important things that we could apply science to, is testing the difference between these two paradigms and these states with 500 people. Just take 500 people and ensure certainty of survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, the actualization of innate talents, the application of that into the field of the group to create well-being and abundance, to a level at which it becomes far more fun and enjoyable to be focused on the group and on the other. Empathy is a very natural aspect of human nature when the sociopathic elements have been removed. How long does it take for that transcendent mindset to be the primary focus and the collaborative synergy to exponentially produce the greater efficiency, the reduction of energy? Now, we know it in things like cooking, for example. The United States breaks down lots of lonely people into giant homes consuming large amounts of energy. And then when the empty void comes without the cohesiveness of a healthy integrated culture, this is filled with food and television. For poor sleep, undercurrents of loneliness, self-loathing and addiction, and a mediocre experience while consuming more energy than any person per capita in the history of the species. And then when you take that scenario, and everyone taking an hour, et cetera, to prepare food that may or may not be terribly nutritious and exciting, and then you bring people together in community dining experiences, with shared cooking. How much time does it take to make soup for one person? How much time does it take to make soup for 100 people? And I've cooked for groups and cooked for individuals. When you add one more person to a dining experience, it doesn't take one more hour. You get an efficiency that continues to go up as the group improves and becomes more and more efficient. It's also more fun. It's similar to cleaning the dishes. It's much more fun to do it as a threesome rather than one-on-one. You have team spirit. You integrate tasks with a sense of belonging. And fun is highly underrated. It is incredibly fun to participate in a dance that includes the goal of meeting everyone's human needs. It's incredibly fun. And there's, of course, a big difference because competition has a very positive role. There's a big difference between ensuring a safe legal place to sleep for every human being, a security of medical care, of food, of warmth, a safe legal place to sleep, the security of knowing there are places where people know you and care about you and have meaningful social interactions on a daily basis, on having quality personal time to aspire to, whether it's role models in the past or present or dreams of the future, and to move towards one's personal ideals. Having the support to identify my talents, which partly are passion-based. Meaning, if I just love taking care of animals, That's a talent. And so how do I bring that gift into the community? Is it by, is it by creating animal performance? Is it by taking care of people's animals? Is it about training animals that bring well-being into the community? For example, training people to be with those who are dying. An animal, a dog, a cat, is so comforting for someone going through the fear of death, that steady, present breath, the oxytocin of touch, etc. Someone who trains animals to help those dying to have a great death. Whether it's to help regulate children as well. Children need to learn energetic regulation skills, and very calm animals can be a wonderful part of that attunement process. So however that takes place, to develop one's personal gifts and bring that resource to the community. Do you know how much one person's love of animals, training 20 animals a year, 10 animals a year to rotate through the community for anyone who wants the comfort of an animal while sick, while dying, and that animal has that particular trait? I mean, this is something that the wealthiest people in the world cannot buy, because it's not presented, because that is an act of love. That is an act of bringing wealth into the community that doesn't flow naturally out of pure capitalism. It's also somewhat diminished in the sense that this is something you would do if you loved your elders. This is something you would do if you loved your children and you had a talent with animals. It is not likely something you would do if you said, how can I make the most money? And so the liberation from narcissistic self-centeredness within a paradigm, see, it may not, because the goal of meeting everyone's needs empathically is not ultimate luxury. It may not be something that generates a fortune. It doesn't need to be to add a higher quality of life than billionaires experience today. And I find this when I go overseas. The way that Thai children love and care for their elders is something that multimillionaires and billionaires in America lack. And the Thai do it for free out of a love and a care for the elder. And so there's a huge upside, because you don't need more than 100,000 or so a year. You don't need more than that. It doesn't do that much. But having one person that cares for you makes all the difference in the world. And how about 5 or 6? Why not an abundance? And so you have an exponential increase of quality of life without increasing consumption of natural resources. And so there can still be an element of capitalism that might take you from a little tiny house or a tent or a yurt, etc., that's guaranteed that you don't need to worry about survival, security, healthy organic food, a safe legal place to sleep. That is a universal right. But if you want to take your tiny house and build a multi-billion-dollar company and have a mansion, sure, go ahead. But you've got a set threshold where it is a human right to meet your human needs one way or another. That regardless of if you're born disabled, if you're mentally you still get a tiny house, a tent, a yurt, etc. And this is understood. So this is a mathematical equation. All human beings from the beginning of time have wanted to feel good and not wanted to feel bad. the efficiency with which that is accomplished is a representation of the intelligence within that community. And what the mathematics of trauma and sociopathic behavior say is that you cannot efficiently create and sustain well-being while simultaneously ignoring the trauma, crisis, and failure to meet human needs with someone next door. That this is not done efficiently, that it is far more efficient to meet everyone's need at a basic level. I mean, we're not talking a mansion for everyone. We're talking a guaranteed, safe, legal place to sleep with dignity. We're talking about security of meeting one's needs with dignity, not with shame, with dignity. A sense of love and belonging, the understanding that the human spirit and the human experience is equal. That your value as a human being, as someone with this skin, with this past experience, etc., is the same essential value as me. We may have different preferences, we may have had different opportunities, but there's an innate sense of dignity and respect for the underlying human being. This is a tremendous leap forward in the mathematics of well-being. And you don't get people volunteering for the martyrhood of terrorism and violence and things like that when this is guaranteed, because it is less fun. It is less fun. There are also more risk-taking. When you have a set threshold of meeting your human needs, you're much more likely to take 5, 10, and 20-year bets about something that might pan out and be incredibly valuable for the species in 10, 20 years if the species is ensuring that your basic human needs are met at a threshold level in which you can survive and meet your needs with dignity. It actually facilitates transcendent vision in very young people and capitalizes on the natural idealism of adolescence. So let's refocus, this aspect of influence, and say that it is unhealthy for any group, any government, any individual to have a strong influence in your life who does not empathize with and prioritize you meeting your human needs of survival, security, etc. And it is very healthy for people to have strong influence on your life that do prioritize your human needs. So one of the things that we could say as individuals is that one of our primary responsibilities for the synergistic realization of our own potential and the potential of the species is to grant more influence to those people who are committed to us meeting our human needs, and to grant less influence to those people who are not committed to meeting our human needs. And when we say our human needs, that the small ring of that is us. The next ring of that is our family, our community, and the next ring of that is our country, our species. And the bigger the sphere, and obviously in a transcendent state we're dealing with the species and the planet, because when you're operating from the transcendent brain, a Native American child in pain is as disturbing as a family member's child's pain, is as disturbing as a Ugandan child in pain. When you are not focused on the egoic identity based on skin color, etc., and you're coming from an empathic transcendence, a human being is a human being. Pain is pain. One person's unit of pain is no different than another. And so the truly transcendent state is species-based. You look at another person's face, you look at their situation, you imagine what that feels like. You talk to them and understand what's going on. And you care because you see and because you acknowledge that you are both a part of something bigger than yourself, and that bigger possibility and probability field is served by this part of the self helping this part of the self. And one of the best ways to look at the synergy in the possibility field of transcendence, or the transcendent brain, is the metaphor of the human body. Were this finger to view itself as an isolated, independent thinker and finger and act accordingly, and every other part of the body do the same, they would never agree on they all wanted to go here and they all wanted to go there. There would be a tremendous amount of discoordination, which only resolves itself when each of the parts of the whole sublimates itself to the synergy of being part of the host body. This finger doesn't fight me when I move it. It participates, and in doing so gets to be a part of a larger possibility field. What this finger could do without a brain, without a regular supply of blood, is very limited compared to what this finger can accomplish when participating as a synergy in a larger, more complex framework. Now, the same thing can be viewed in teamwork. What 5 dedicated human beings can do in 10 years is exponentially bigger than what one person can do in 10 years. Add 25, it is again exponentially bigger. The exponentials increase up to, it's the consciousness is always an exponential consciousness. Sociologists have done work to show that we cannot remain intimate with more than 140 or so people, and so somewhere between somewhere around that point you may want to break into groups, smaller groups that then share information and work with other groups to maintain maximum intimacy. In a lot of tribal cultures, including chimpanzees, etc., at a certain size, they split in half. Because for maximum ease of intuitive cohesion, you want to intimately know the people you spend most of your time with. And if you stay in groups, smaller than 150, somewhere in that range, you've got a pretty good chance of intimately knowing and thus attuning, so that you can have a very healthy group dynamic that is in tune with itself, as opposed to spending most of your time with strangers who you will never see again, who have no idea that your mother just died or why you're angry, that they just have no idea. And so there's a lot of discordant information. So we know that power is optimally given. Influence is optimally given to people who have empathy for the larger group. That's clear. And not given in other ways. And this is a choice to some extent when we're dealing with psychological impact. So let's talk about, and less so when physical impact. You don't really get to choose who pulls a gun on you or how fast bullets travel or punches or anything like that. But you do get to decide which books to read. For example, a book that says that you are less valuable than the author or other groups, well, you don't have to buy that book and fuel that energy. A TV program that is all about how the things important to you are stupid, you don't have to watch that TV program. But let's look at the composition of influence. How much something affects us get determined? And I would say that there's two forms of rank that tie into influence. And one is called the dominance ranking system, which ties in with alliance with power. So in the sociopathic dominance hierarchy, there is a pinnacle, a triangular shape, and at the top is the most concentrated power that is imposed with the underlying threat of physical, financial, and social force of violence. And so this then leads to the protocol of alliance with power. And so this is money in a capitalist cult. So if you are in a capitalist cult rather than a humanist cult, the money is king, not human beings. It's a little bit backwards because human beings create money, but nonetheless, in the story of capitalism, the goose that lays the golden eggs is less important than the golden eggs. Mathematically flawed, but nonetheless a cult illusion. And so this is pleasing, serving, having access to people with money and gaining money. In a cult of law, and again, in America, we're very proud to be a cult of law. We're not a cult of human beings, and we very proudly kill, maim, separate, destroy human beings to uphold the rule, not of empathy and humanity, but the rule of law. So then a lawyer, a judge, is either being friends with or being one is giving you rank in a cult of law. In a political cult, being friends with or becoming a high-level political figure is part of this dominance ranking. In a military cult, being a boxer, marksman, knife thrower, black belt, karate, friends with a military leader, etc., friends with police, gives you rank within a dominance cult. Being large or armed gives you rank in a traumatic cult, in a violence cult. And so you have these different groupings of power in proximity to the hierarchy. And so this can be done with blackmail, manipulation, association, marriage, business dealings, interdependent relationships, or being in these roles oneself. And so you've got a ranking system in the dominance hierarchy. Now, the other rank system is the ideals. Now, in an empathy-based paradigm, you don't have any of the dominance ranks as being relevant. You're a lawyer, you're a judge, if those roles are relevant in an empathy thing, it doesn't make you more or less important or higher ranking than a cook or something else. A cook could be higher ranking than a lawyer because lawyers often bring a great deal of misery and cooks bring a great deal of delight. So in an intelligence cult, intelligence is measured by the efficiency with which energy is transformed into human well-being. And since legal proceedings take vast amounts of energy, money, and make all concerned generally miserable, it's not as intelligent as preparing delicious food or growing beautiful gardens, which are fun to watch, fun to do, and bring sustainability for less energy. So in the ideals, the kind of the ultimate vector is some version of beauty, truth, and goodness, which are just sides of the same object. Truth is more beautiful than lies. Goodness is more true and beautiful than ugliness. Goodness is more true than it is, lies. You can kind of self-reference these things and find that they're kind of different aspects of the same core energy. Beauty is good. Goodness is beautiful. Truth is good. Truth is beautiful. Beauty has a truth within it, because what we find most beautiful is symmetry, which is a certain form of integrity, of integration, which is what truth is. And so you've got these different levels. And within what we tend to emphasize of beauty, truth, and goodness are the qualities that most relate to human needs or human preferences. So, for example, one of the reasons skill in fighting is elevated in our cult is because survival is not a need that we've fully met. So in a sociopathic cult, if you cannot fight at all and you are predated, you don't survive and your family doesn't survive. But if you can fight better than the other group and your family is predated, which it will be in a sociopathic cult in one way or another, then you are the winner and you survive. And so fighting is not beautiful, true, and good in and of itself, but it becomes relevant as a skill in context with a sociopathic culture in which predation and violation is inevitable. This helps to understand what is deified in our present time. It's generally combative technology, internet technology, so I can get more clicks than you, video editing technology, so I can have more viewers, things like this, in a competitive framework, or speed of car, so I can outrun the police, who are, of course, going to be trying to irritate me and obstruct my freedoms. And so you have these what is admired, what is seen as beautiful, true, and good, is that which facilitates the winning of human needs: survival, security, love, and belonging. So you look at designer clothes, which are highly elevated in a sociopathic cult, because that's going to get you sex and belonging, love and belonging in the form, a rather rudimentary or adolescent format, but of sex. If people wearing these clothes get more sex, i.e. love and belonging, than people who don't, then suddenly you have a myopic focus on clothing that doesn't exist if everyone has an abundance of love and belonging. Meaning, in a scarcity mentality that is created by traumatic protocols of sociopathic behavior, in a scarcity environment, then something that gives you love and belonging that everyone doesn't have becomes a very thing. I want to be like them. I want to dance like them, talk like them, dress like them. They're the ones who are getting the love and belonging. And so you have emulation of the winners, always. But in a cult where everyone wins, meaning everyone survives, everyone feels secure, everyone has love and belonging, that's a human right. And we attend to that together with a simple thing as an app every week, 1 to 10. I mean, do you have a safe, legal place to sleep? Yes or no? Do you have safe, warm, nourishing food 3 times a day if you want it? Yes or no? Do you have access to the medical care that you need? Yes or no? Do you have confidence in your safety with the people around you? Yes or no? Sexually, physically, etc., your safety. If you do not, if you rank that below a 5, and you've got 30 people in proximity that will get an alert, there's someone in your midst who isn't feeling safe, and you have a protocol. How can we help? What do you need to feel safe? This person's looking at me, I'm feeling insecure, I don't know that many people. How can we help? My name's Bill, this is Joe. We'll ask this person to stop looking at you. Well, maybe they need something. Are their needs being met? It's not about polarizing. It's about responsiveness, responsibility. Well, when that gets resolved right there, you don't need to spend money on police. You've got competent human beings responding to human needs. And my sense of love and belonging. Nobody knows this about me. I have this weird fetish. I have this secret. I don't feel safe here. Okay. So how can we help? How can we, if this is a toxic secret in terms of this is harming the community, how can we undo some of that harm together? What is buried such that you don't feel that you belong? Even we're accepting the presenting persona, but there's a deeper persona that's afraid they're going to be hurt if this comes out. How do we heal those wounds? How do we respond? And then does it work? When we're responding to this in app technology daily, why not daily? 5 or 10 minutes to go through your basic human needs and rank where you are. And do you need help? And do you want help? Would it be fun to work on this as a group of 5 rather than just 1 and go back and forth? Let's take turns and help each other. When you're in that paradigm, which is an empathic paradigm, you don't idolize the fastest black belt because they are irrelevant. They don't help you celebrate your partner's success more than before. What becomes more relevant are the beauty of cooking. We could all be eating in an environment where the food presentation is 1,000% more beautiful and simultaneously 5 times healthier than it is today, with a low stress environment in which very nourishing food would be perfect for the body, as opposed to I'm so anxious I want to get some meat and potatoes in me. To be actually say, I feel so alive, I want to feel this energy, I'll just have a little arugula salad with a hint of pear and a zest of soda, this, and I'll try something new. I'm not trying to medicate my anxiety, I'm trying to enhance my aliveness. So food is very easy to bring into the category of 1,000% more higher quality of life, more well-being associated than the average person is experiencing today, with less cost. And it's fun. It's fun. So what is the ideals relate in some way with the intersection of our human needs and beauty, truth, and goodness. And, they can be more knowledge if knowledge brings more beauty, truth, goodness, and well-being. If a certain skill, if you can make the most delicious baked goods and share them with people and their well-being explodes, this is an incredible thing to admire, to aspire to. Artistry, if rather than all cars are created equal, or all bus, if people paint, if the art is to make every part of life a piece of art, where the clothing is art, the transportation is art, the architecture is art, and it's aspiring to this sense of unique beauty, truth, and goodness. Now you're going through the world of imagination with 1,000 to 2,000% higher aesthetic value than the present. And it's incredibly fun to collaboratively do art. So you have the ideal ranking, and we do give rank to people who measure high in ideals. For example, our current cult, because orgasm is a medicine for trauma, and because it is a cult symbol of popularity, which is a political aspect, sexual attractiveness, as it is currently viewed, is a very high-ranking ideal, the ideal of sexual attractiveness. But interestingly, in our cult, people can be considered highly hot, is the current word for it, and not have much sex, or not have very satisfying sex, but it's ranked objectively. And people who are considered not hot can have very satisfying, abundant sex. So there's a disconnect between what's considered hot and the actual quality and variety and satisfaction of sexuality. But hotness or attractiveness, which is currently an ideal, it's tying in with beauty, beauty, truth, and goodness as a ranking system, can become more diverse, but also less addictive when you have reduced trauma. You can have a lot more enjoyment and diversity rather than the adrenaline driven sexuality, which is a kind of mediation for anxiety or burning off of fear and anger, which is produced in a sociopathic environment. And so whatever the values are, and these change with time based on a sense of symmetry of the psyche. If we're very, very timid and hesitant and introverted, our ideal might be to become more extroverted as we move in that direction up to a certain point, and then deeply appreciate our introversion now that we're not feeling trapped by it. So this ranking system, we always give influence to people. Like if you're a speed addict, speed is another adrenaline drug in an anxious culture, in a traumatized culture, as is power. And so you're going to admire and give influence to someone who ranks highly in what you admire. So if you're a speed junkie, a speed addict, or an adrenaline addict who uses speed and then practices that in race car racing, if you meet the fastest race car person in the world, you're going to give them impact. If you're a writer or someone who believes in literature and you meet your favorite author, they will have impact. They will have impact because they are the embodiment of your ideal. And this is why it's so important for people in roles of, like the church, because they're embodying the ideal of God, to actually have incredibly, to actually be ethical, to use, and ethical basically is to use the influence one has to meet rather than harm the needs of other human beings. That is the ethical, the right path, because that is the most efficient path going forward. Now, within chauvinism, you have the bifurcation of the psyche into two parts, that which is masculine and that which is feminine. This is separate from gender, that which is masculine. And so all dynamics split into a yin and yang, a masculine and feminine. The communication dynamic splits into speaking, masculine, feminine, listening. The exchange of energy or exchange dynamic fits into giving, masculine, receiving, feminine. The learning dynamic splits into teaching and learning, or the teacher and the student, and both parts are equal on a mathematical level, but in a cult paradigm of chauvinism, the masculine is elevated. The teacher is viewed as more important than the student, the parent more important than the child, the speaker more important than the listener, the giver more high-ranking than the receiver. And every single human dynamic has its positive and negative, its masculine and feminine polarity. And even the term negative speaks to the chauvinism. We don't apply it to batteries. I mean, we don't stigmatize the negative polarity of a battery. We understand it is equally relevant to electricity. But negative has a negative connotation in a self-referential way within chauvinism. And so it's actually viewed within chauvinism, it is viewed as derogatory to associate women with femininity. Because femininity in a self-referential chauvinistic loop is viewed as negative. So women say, wait a minute, why are women getting the low-ranking roles? I don't want to be a listener, I want to be a talker. In other words, women want to compete to be more masculine than men, because both women and men in a chauvinistic cult devalue femininity and overvalue masculinity when scientifically they are equal. So let's look at some of the different things that determine the impact of someone in our lives today. So one is how close they are to our ideals, our stated values. As I say, if we're a race car driver, the fastest person who ever drove is probably going to be an ideal. So they'll have more influence than someone who doesn't know how to drive. For us, because we give we project and deify what we value. So one thing is how highly someone ranks in our ideals. And in our cult, the default is to rank whiteness as ahead of blackness. So if someone is white, they'll be higher ranking as a default than black. Now these are current cult dominance hierarchies. There's no scientific merit to any of this. We're just looking at the default assumption. Unless you go in and train yourself to heal racism that has been instilled since birth, you are racist. The default mode is what is adopted by every child in every cult. And so within our cult, it's useful to know what these default modes are. So white over black, male over female. I was just listening to a book today, and it's like, yes, it's a boy. Classic chauvinism. I mean, it's It's absolutely absurd. It's not talked about. Why is this? But every woman in that room understands that because they're a woman, they're less valuable. And so you have male over female, big over small, power in money and politics and physical size over not power. So more money, bigger men have more dominance or more higher rank in the dominance hierarchy than smaller, shorter men. And so you see this in the ego dynamics between two men, where the bigger person, there's all kinds of different ways around this. The bigger person has the higher chair, the judge looks from above. So bigger and taller is part of the rank system. So having more money, the wealthier. And you notice the feminine is nowhere to be found in any of these ranking systems. In a chauvinistic cult, there will never be a list of the best listeners in the country. There will never be a list of the best mothers in the country. There will never be a list of the kindest and most empathic people, even though you could say that the most valuable people in the country are the best mothers, the best listeners, the kindest people in the country. So the most valuable people in the country are not listed because they're in feminine terrain. And the people that are listed is the Forbes 400 list, the Fortune 500 list, the Fortune 100 list, which just means size and money. We're not talking about excellence. We're not talking about ethics. We're talking about size and money. In other words, so to matter in a chauvinistic cult, you have to measure up in the chauvinistic metrics of the cult. So you've got money. The more money you have, the more important you are, basically, in a chauvinistic cult. And then you've got accomplishments, exterior accomplishments. You may have beautiful inner states, but that's feminine. We don't measure it. So exterior accomplishments. Winning battles. So if you're a general and you won the battle, you get high ranking. If you're in the military, you get higher ranking than not being in a military. So a military record, you've shown that you're willing to be sociopathic and kill people if necessary and have trained in violence. You're higher ranking in a dominance hierarchy. Technologically innovative. You have created something, a masculine thing. I built this, I made this, I thought this. And so we've got, I designed this, it's mine. You put your name on something. This plant was named after me. You're higher ranking than nothing's named after you. The George Washington Bridge. Oh my gosh, you must be really important. Your name is on this. How powerful your friends are means you're higher ranking. How many people know about you is higher ranking. How many people know about you and like you is even higher ranking. So these are all ranks within the dominance hierarchy. How much do you charge for your service? You may not have millions or billions, but if you charge $500 an hour for your time, you're more important in our cult than if you charge $5 an hour for your time. And, if you're a doctor and you decide to work for $5 an hour in the poorest of the poor neighborhood, people will say, good on you, good on you. But the higher ranking person in our cult is the person who gets $500 an hour. That's the higher rank. That's who people want to be. If we aspired to study in medical school and donate our services, people could easily do it. What the aspiration is towards wealth. If you have high sex appeal, you are high ranking. If you have, as a man, slept with many women, you are higher ranking than if you are, heaven forbid, a virgin, or have just slept with a few women. So sexual conquest is another rank in our cult. Why? Because men enjoy having sex. And so they want more of it. And they enjoy sexual variety. And so they want more of it. So the people who have succeeded at doing that are closer to their ideal of beauty, truth, and goodness. Like, that would be a good life. That's a beautiful life. That's the life, having women throw themselves at you, and, you can barely get one out before the next is in, and stuff. Oh, how do you do that? So there's a ranking towards someone who embodies your ideal. And of course, chauvinistic men in a chauvinistic cult rank that the most important thing in a relationship is physical sex. So having bought into that chauvinism, if you have more of the most important thing, then you're more successful. And so height, the taller you are, we've already covered, attractiveness. So if you're a tall, rich, well-connected, then there's smart, then there's associated with leading institutions. So we've already covered the military. If you've gone to an Ivy League university and gotten degrees, if you've won awards, articulation is another talent that is highly rated. So we have kind of the cult would basically say that if you're a white male, rich, Ivy League educated, have made lots of things, have lots of things named after you, have had sex with lots of women, are on the Fortune Forbes 100 list, have what else? Are tall, and have military service, have won some awards, let's say the Nobel Peace Prize and this and that. And then the other thing we rank for is competitiveness. So you've won some sports medals, you've got physical brawn, and then you are witty in a way that makes you look higher. So this can be putting other people down, not letting them put you down. So you win on wit, you win in money, you win in political power, you win in physical prowess and brawn. You are smart, and you sociopathically ensure that you get the best thing. This is the deity. This is the ideal. The default mode is for every woman to want to have that man guarding and protecting and providing for her, and every man wanting to be that man in a chauvinistic, in our cult. That is the pinnacle. And to be able to do whatever you want with your time and just have lots of luxury and things like that, and lots of things to show off and talk about at parties. So that's, and to be wearing designer clothes. And for a man, it would be to have younger women, lots of them, preferably. And so there you would have kind of the personification of the cult's deity. Now, the problem, so this person will have influence. If you believe in this, which as a default mode you do, then this person will have a semi-conscious to strong conscious influence on you. But this person is most likely in our cult a sociopath, meaning the path to the White House, the path to political power, the path to billions, the path of a tall, white, attractive male with lots of lovers, etc., is, statistically speaking, a sociopathic path. A highly empathic person doesn't take those routes. They may share the company with their employees, and so their personal income isn't as high. They may show more concern for their partner's feelings and not go around in public with a younger girlfriend when they're married and stuff. A sociopath doesn't mind that at all. They may, not ask their parents to go into so much debt to send them to an Ivy League university and be quite happy studying something they're interested in on their own. And so there's lots of different divergences where the highest ranking people in our cult are statistically more likely to be sociopathic. In particular, if you think of political office, the amount of hostility thrown at those in office means that if you're not sociopathic, it's going to hurt you a lot to be misunderstood, to be criticized, to have to put on these little soundbite rather than to be deeply heard and understood and blamed for everyone's problems. That's going to hurt. So you're not going to be interested in the role. But if you're in a sociopathic place and you just brush all that off and you say, well, all I want is to be high ranking, well, then it'll help. If someone is the professional and the expert, you've also got, a high-ranking situation. So, in order to ensure that the people who influence us are people who have a loving and empathic interest in our, well-being, there are very clear paths of empathy. The most empathic person will be attending to the homeless person rather than the mayor's mansion. The most empathic person is going to be, looking at policies for the poor and medical care rather than focusing on plastic surgery for billionaires. Billionaires don't need plastic surgery. They're just frivoling around, obviously not very concerned about, the poverty in their neighborhood, or there wouldn't be any. Their billions would easily sort that out. But there is poverty in the neighborhood because they're in a sociopathic state. Poor people are not their concern. If it was their concern, they would quickly spend their billions to transform that dynamic. And so the way that we engage and show deference to rank is part of, in a dominance hierarchy, there is a competition for rank in every interaction. And this is within a sociopathic paradigm where the person who ends up with the highest rank can have a benefit at the expense of other people. And so there's a little bit of a tension there. And we show deference to someone who's high ranking by paying higher fees, by being willing to wait. Like, why doesn't the doctor wait for us? Why do we show up 30 minutes early and wait for the doctor? Well, in our cult, we've decided the doctor is higher ranking than the patient. And so, of course, you're a patient, so you should pay me and wait around and come to me on my schedule and fill out my forms. I'm not going to fill out your forms. What do you mean? You want to know when I went to school here and what's my belief? I'm not going to fill out your forms. I'm a doctor. You're just a patient. So you've got the deference because deference is also a feminine pose. I'm going to respond to you. The initiator holds the structure. That's a masculine pose. The one who defers to the other, that's a feminine pose. doesn't matter if it's male or female, it's a feminine pose. And so in a chauvinistic culture, this means I'm less valuable. Paying high fees, listening, like the expert is viewed as more ranking than the average person, and so you give influence to an expert by listening to them and not asking them to listen to you. By following, someone says do this, and you do what they say. The one who has the most feelings in a chauvinistic cult is lower ranking. The one who is more sardonic, more sarcastic, more witty, particularly from an informed perspective, or pretending to be patronized, like, oh, the women, who can understand them? That type of attitude in a chauvinistic cult is higher ranking than the emotional one. And this is understood when you call a man a woman, or you cry like a woman, etc. What you're saying is, we all know women are shit, and now you're shit because you're behaving in a feminine way. The number of people who all give you the same message also is part of the influence domain. So if you've got 20 people all treating you as if you're worth shit, there's a lot more impact than if one person is doing and 19 are defending you. The suggestibility of your state, the more confused you are, the more uncertain you are. The higher your psychedelic drug content. Psychedelic drugs tend to create a lot of influence, like LSD or MDMA or psilocybin mushrooms. You've got now more suggestibility than you do when you're in a more fluid state of consciousness. So you don't want to take psychedelic drugs with someone who doesn't have your primary interest at heart. You don't want to listen to someone who doesn't have your primary interest at heart, which is basically a commitment to your needs as the primary concern, or at least equal to their own. And you don't want to have someone who has no feelings play a role. And then, of course, the power in the situation. They've got a gun, you don't. They're a police officer, you're not. They're a prison guard, you're in jail. The role and the verticality of the role will also play a role in influence. And so our cult does concentrate power in various forms in groups and in individuals. Our cult is highly traumatized. This means that it's not that power corrupts. It's that the more power someone in a traumatized state coming from the reptilian brain has, the more they will use the fight, flight, freeze instinct sociopathically for their own benefit at the expense of those who have less power. And the more they will use the fight rather than the freeze and flight thing, the assertiveness, to extract the sex, the money, the information, the submission, the respect, the credit, whatever it is, like the dynamic of a teacher stealing a student's idea and getting a patent on it. The teacher is in a sociopathic state, in a scarcity mentality, so they're operating from the reptilian brain, but they have concentrated power. Concentrated power is inevitable in a dominance hierarchy. Sociopathic reptilian thinking is inevitable in a sociopathic culture in which trauma has not been resolved. We are in a sociopathic and chauvinistic culture in which trauma is not resolved because we are a trauma-illiterate cult, which means that the dominant hierarchies that are laced throughout every fabric of our cult, from parenting to teaching to boss-employee dynamics, will lead to abuses of power as the person with concentrated mass and power imposes imposes their sociopathic agenda on those who lack the ability to confront and equal their mass without their survival, security, love and belonging, etc., being jeopardized.